Hi, I'm Shay Oliver. Welcome to the Priority Paradigm. I'm sharing stories of amazing people who've made radical changes in their lives for something more important. Today, I'm joined by Bruno Kongawoin, and he has an absolutely wonderful story to tell us. So without further ado, Bruno, take it away.
Hey Shay, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having me on the show. And I know that my time right now, everybody is sleeping, but I'm up just been waiting for you for this thing for the last 2 weeks, man.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you reaching out and Lila as well to connect us, and which is great. And yeah, so my story is a little bit all over the place, man. Because initially I was born in Central African Republic, and I end up in Australia. I've been here my whole adult life, but while I'm here in Australia, I've lived abroad as well in some other countries before coming back again. But everything started with my basketball days, you know, when I was a lot younger. And I happened to have a teacher who was from Houston. So he was my PE teacher, algebra teacher, world history teacher, and he took a liking to me because he knew that I wasn't smart, but I just work hard at everything. And so he kind of, tried to encourage my father to send me to school in the States because with the work ethic that I had, he said, if I was to go to the States, I'd be able to excel playing basketball and I do well with my book work as well. And, a few years back, African parents, they didn't want their kid to play sports professionally, or they didn't want their kid to play sports because it wasn't going to get, nobody anywhere.
Huh.
You have to study hard to become a lawyer, become a doctor, or work in the government. So that was the mindset, back then. And I realized that because everybody in my family at the time, these are the profession, cousins, uncles, everybody is in that profession. And in my mind, I always say, you know what? Someone's got to be able to count their money for them and keep track of the money for them. And this is what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna be a lawyer or doctor or whatever. I've got to be someone who be able to take care of their money for them. So
Nice.
first of all, that was my goal. And as I was growing up, and my father used to travel around a fair bit, so he used to come back with vinyls, albums, from Marvin Gaye to ABBA in Norway, whatever. And so because I used to have those vinyls, I started organizing parties even at 9, 10 years old.
Nice.
Exactly. So my friends used to come over. If you had to pay 2 francs or whatever, just, I started being a little bit, an entrepreneur at that young age. But what really got me to get going away from my family is the recommendation, suggestion of my teacher. His name was Chris Pond. And so he encouraged my father to the point that my father finally succumbed to looking into sending me to the States. And but at the time I was a minor, 11 years old. The US Embassy wasn't gonna give me a visa to go to the States by myself. So my teacher, Chris Pond, said, don't worry about it. I got, some of my friends that I went to college with, I can organize them to be my legal guardian. So he did that, and a couple of days later, got a visa, and they just put me on the plane, and that was it.
Wow.
So my father, my mom, nobody came with me. They just said goodbye to them, and I've been away from my family relatively since I was 11 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and I end up in Houston, and my legal guardian, came and met me at the airport, took me to his place, and got me settled and so forth. And a couple of days later, I went to the school that I was going to attend to. It was a small Catholic school in southwest of Houston called Straight Jesuit High School. However, they wanted me to repeat the grade that I was in already, but I wasn't prepared to repeat that grade because I knew I already passed that grade. Even though English wasn't my first language, I said, hey, I could do the work without the English, because math is math, physics is physics. Physics, the science and whatever, they don't change. I might not understand the question, but I know I can do the work if I could understand it. So for that reason, I went to an intensive English lessons during that summer, because I got to the States somewhere like end of May.
Mm-hmm.
And went to that school just to see how school works in the States and stuff. And that summer, I was every day 8 hours of English, to catch up with English. I can get back to school and understand what I needed to do and so forth.
Sure.
And the principal didn't want me to be a sophomore at that time, because I was going to be a sophomore. I went to school 3 years ahead of my time as well, because I was a big child, and then my father didn't want me to stay at home. So sent me to kindergarten. Hung out with the guys, and because I was just as big as them, even though I was young in age, but I carried on with it. So I was always 2-3 years younger than most people, that I was in class with. And so already at 11 years old or whatever, I was sophomore in high school. And anyway, so they didn't want me to repeat because of my age. They said, you don't worry, because of the age, you can catch up. I said, no, this is where I am. This is where I'm going to be. I don't want to go back. If I cannot do the work, that's okay. So I did English during the summer while I was doing English tuition. I passed with a D+, and the rest of it, the math and whatever, I did very well. So there's no need for me to repeat anything whatsoever. Anyway, so that kind of led into a disagreement, to the point that I said, oh, well, if I cannot go to this school, there is another school that I could go to. And so, that was my reasoning. And my legal guardian said, okay, I talk to your father and see what he can say. And then my father tried to talk me into it. I said, no, I got to stick to my gun. And I stuck to my gun, so they moved me from that school to another school. And when I got to that school, it was a lot more smaller, only 300 students. And it's called Marian Christian High School. It's in the southwest of Houston as well. And that's where I played, basketball, did track and field and so forth, and did very well with everything else, and ended up graduating, high school. And in high school, we did very well as well, because it was such a small school. And when I got there, I got one of my friends that I was playing basketball with back in Africa to come as well. And his parents sent him, and he came to the same school as me. And he's the one that I showed you in the magazine here with me. Yeah. And for me, if you ask me, so who's the best player that you ever played with? For me, it's going to be this guy, because he was just one of the best ball handlers, that I ever played with. Even though we watch Magic Johnson, all of those guys, they're great. But for me, someone that I was on the court with for years,
Sure,
doesn't come any better than that guy. And so we end up winning few state championships, in basketball. And because I did track and field, so I did very well in high jump, long jump, and 400 meters. And I anchored the 400-meter relay team as well. So, yeah, I got state championships, in all of those things. And my school jacket didn't have any more, spot for, patches in the front. I have to go in the back. Those kind of things just for fun. But anyway, so I ended up going to a small school in Houston called Houston Baptist University. It's in the Southwest as well.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I had offers for a lot of other big division school, going from Rice University in Houston all the way up to UCLA, Notre Dame, and so forth. And I ended up staying in Houston, close to home, but I went to a small school because that was the recommendation that, or the advice, from the people around me, and so on. And so we did very well while I was there. When I got there, the team was doing very well. And with the backup of some players like me coming off the bench as freshmen, we end up winning conference, and then we went undefeated in conference. And we played, to the point that we went to the ACA tournament. And then we lost to Morehead University,
Mm-hmm.
in the first round. But for a small school like, my college at the time, just making it to the NCAA for us, that was a big thing. And it's been over 3 years now that the school hasn't, been able to make it to the NCAA tournament. So, which is a great feat for us, that team. And as of 3 years ago, we were inducted into the Hall of Fame of Houston Baptist.
Oh, very
and yeah, so we all have a star on some walks around campus and so on. And then that was, a great ceremony to attend. And I end up in Milwaukee after college. And I didn't get drafted. I missed out on the draft. Even though I was projected to be drafted, I didn't get drafted because I went to a relatively small school. But my numbers looked good, but not too many people got to see me. They just heard about me. So for that reason, I didn't get drafted. But Dale Harris, who was the Houston Rockets coach, had seen me play in college because I was a local player. So he saw me play during the summer, and he knew what I could do. So he was the new head coach in Milwaukee. So he said, Bruno, you know what? I would like you to come to camp and try. I don't promise you anything, but I know what you can do. And we got a staff, so we're gonna see what you can do. But it's gonna be a challenge because we're gonna have 35 people, at training camp. That's not the players who are on the contract. That's just the free agents. So we're gonna have 35 of you guys, and we got only 2 spots for, for 2 players. And so they flew me up to Milwaukee, and we were out there for like 2 weeks, going through whatever that we had to go through and so on. And I end up being one of the 2 players, that they end up signing.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it was a great feeling, because while I got there, you can see so many other players. And for one of the things that I got to see later, the game has changed a lot. But while I was up in Milwaukee at the time, the only thing that I realized that was different from me and the other players, everybody could shoot the ball, everybody can run, everybody could dunk the ball and so forth. But yet the coach, they just wanted someone to think a little bit outside of the box a little bit. That's the only thing that I kind of got out of the 2-week training session that we had. It wasn't about because you can shoot the threes or because you can run the floor, because you can dunk the ball. No, it was just, can you think a little bit?
Right.
Yeah, and then that was it. So just that little edge that I had, and especially during training camp as well, you have to listen to the coach, take note, the little detail. They want to see that because at that particular time, they didn't care. It wasn't so much about game. It was about who can we actually have on the team that we can mold to suit the way we play. So for that reason, they're watching the little things that you do, your attitude after game, before games, are you coming on time? Are you ready to practice? Do you stay back and then shoot a few more free throws, or do you come a little bit early? So they watch all of those things. And after the game, do you go back to your hotel, chill out, or you out partying, and all of those things. And anyway, so it paid for me, to be on track and, be a little bit centered. And unfortunately, that year I was in Seoul in 1988 at the Olympics representing my country. And because in Africa, the African champions, they get to represent, Africa basically,
sure.
And which is not fair for the African countries because we got so many different countries. And then look at a country like mine, it's only 3.5 million people. And then we're gonna go out there trying to represent the whole of Africa, while we have so many top players in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Angola, Mozambique. So if it were to pick the best players out of those countries and we put them together, we'd be competing, like the people in Eastern Europe used to do. Yugoslavia is made out many countries, Croatia, Serbia, whatever, so when those people, get the best players, they used to give hell to the US and so on.
Right, right.
Yeah, and so on. So I wish that the African system was the same, where we get to pick the best players to make one solid team, as opposed to one country winning a tournament in Africa and to represent the whole African continent in a way.
Sure.
But while in so, the Korean too, they kind of made a mistake because they didn't do any scouting to see what kind of players we had on the team. As it's been around for so long, the African teams, we can win the African games, go to the World Games, or go to the Olympics. But we don't win. People just beat us up like a drum, basically.
Sure.
Yeah, the score spread could be like 40, 50, 60 points, like 120 to 45, 160 to 62, those kind of things.
Yep.
And we were, as drawn to play the home country, Korea, at the opening game of the basketball tournament.
Nice.
So they didn't make, they didn't do any scouting and so forth, but we did our scouting to know who are the best players on the team and so forth. And another thing that Coach Del Harris got me up in Milwaukee for was my defensive ability. At 6'8", I move like a 5'10" guy.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I could guard, a 5'10" guy, or I can guard a 7'4".
Sure.
And that was some of the things that I was doing, in college. Hence the reason why I was averaging, very good in rebounding, because I was only playing with the bigger guys and so forth. And so I was assigned to guard the best player on that team. And that guy, when we did our scouting report on him, he was averaging 34 points a game. And he was tough. And my job always, which I got used to playing at Houston Baptist, is to always defend the best player on the other team.
Sure.
Stay under their average. So if someone is averaging 25, my job is to keep him down to 24.5. And so on. I just don't want him to get that average.
Right.
And so on. And, my African coaches, they knew that about me as well. So I got to guard this other guy. And he too was guarding me as well. So he got frustrated because he just could not get shots off and so on. And I intercepted one of the passes coming to him. And I was going for, a layup. However, I was going to finish it. And out of frustration, he came and knocked me right into the, the stands, into the bleachers. And so I got injured very badly from my knee all the way down to my Achilles tendon. And for that reason, I just played only 2/3 of the opening game, and I didn't play the rest of the tournament because of the injury. And subsequent to that, I went back to Milwaukee because I just flew from Seoul straight to Milwaukee after the games, on crutches and stuff, and I could not train. And they sent me back to Houston to go look after myself, and still kept me on the contract and just tell me to go back. And because the idea for Coach Harris was at the time to be able to back up Terry Cummings.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And so on, and possibly along the way to groom me to play more like Dennis Rodman, but defensively.
Right.
Yeah. To be that kind of player, but I had an edge because I can, jack the ball up and so forth, and I can put it on the floor as well. So, they could either, play with me or work with me to become a big guard or a small forward that can defend and run the court. So that was the idea. So when I went back to Houston, I got a call from Australia to come and play. And I hesitated at first, or I wanted a little bit more money than what they were offering. And they weren't prepared to do that. So I said, okay, forget it. I'm just going to stay in Houston and, have fun. 3 months later, another team called. And that team was from a small, place in Australia here. And at that time, I said, yeah, you know what? You guys been bothering me, so I'm going to jump on a plane and go over there and see what you guys are talking about.
Sure.
Yeah, so I ended up in Australia back in 1990. And I didn't enjoy what was going on, so I didn't want to play basketball. I met a girl from Tasmania and went to visit her in Tasmania. One thing led to another. I married her, and with the little money that I saved from playing basketball, I got into business for myself and ran with that for 11 years. And things didn't work out the way I wanted, because I got family and business kind of cross and intertwined in a way.
Right.
And so that kind of became the catalyst of the break of my marriage. And, with that girl, so we kind of split up and I decided to sell and I moved on. Ended up in Victoria, which is another bigger state here in Australia. That's where Melbourne is. And because I finished college with the finance, degree, and while I was running my business in Tasmania, I went back to school to do further studies in accounting. So I got a job as an accountant, and I worked for 6 years in Melbourne. But my idea wasn't to move to Melbourne and work. My idea was to move from Tasmania, go to Melbourne, and then travel the east coast of Australia to the north coast and end up on the west coast. And then from here, I can decide whether to go back to the States or go back to Europe or go back to Africa or stay in Australia.
So you wanted to basically just travel?
Basically, that's it. Just do my thing and just, carry on and enjoy life.
Sure.
And so one thing led to another. I kind of got stuck in Melbourne because I was having so much fun in Melbourne and a lot of great people around me. And one day I just woke up and realized wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to do. Though I'm having fun here, but I had bigger plan to have, greater fun and so on. So for that reason, I'm going to give up my work. So I went to the office and talked to my reporting commercial manager at the time. I said, hey, I like the job and I love you guys here, but I just want to pack and move to Western Australia and see what's out there, because that was the initial idea. And he tried to talk me out of it. I said, no, I'm going to have to move on, mate. So we kind of said goodbye. I packed my car, sold everything that I had in the apartment, and drove across the Nullarbor, which is possibly 7,000 miles.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's something like 4,500 kilometers. No, it's less than that. Yeah, possibly 3,200 miles or something on that line. Yeah.
That's a big drive.
Yeah, and then I ended up here in Western Australia, got a job as an accountant and worked for a little while. And once again, I met another girl whose company was trying to send her to Indonesia to open up an office. And she told me about it. And there were some concerns about bombing of places that expats used to go to a lot in Indonesia, whether it's in Bali or Jakarta. Yeah. So there was a little bit of hesitation there. Then I said, no, we have almost 6 billion people in this world. So if you're going to be in a place that's going to get bombed and you're going to get hurt, it's because it's time for you to go, because the probability is very, very minute. So
Right.
there's no need to feel like you're going to be a victim if you were to go, because don't live life fearing that something bad is going to happen to you. Just trying to go and do it. And we talked about it, so we decided to pack up. So I gave up on the job and I went with her. We opened up an office for her company and we ran that office for 4 years, running the office from our home to the point that we end up having a presence in a stock exchange of Jakarta, with an office there, and company grew up, and company again, based here in Perth, suggested that, hey, would you like to go to London to open up a European headquarters for us? And so that was an easier decision to make, because she's half English as well, because her mom is English, and me being African and growing up in France before going to the US. So I was going to be closer to my family that I haven't seen for so many years because I've been so far away. And so that was an easy decision for us to make. And so we packed up our bags, and then we moved to London, and she got the office up and running. Now the office possibly got like 70 or 80 people in it. And while I was in Jakarta doing the things that we were doing, I had ample time on my hand. And photography was always something that I used to do for fun. And I started going around the place, photographing people on the streets, getting to learn the language. And I would sit down with them, eat the food that they're cooking, and they think that I was weird. But I learned the language. So I was able to talk to people everywhere I went. And I became like this attraction for them as well, for someone to come to our country and learn our language, and they can come and sit down with us. And even though I'm not Muslim, but that did not cause any problem whatsoever.
Right.
And so I photographed a lot of those people, and I love the expression that I was getting from the people. So if you see my work that I'm doing right now, everything stems from what I used to see on those people.
Okay.
Yes, because they used to have genuine expression on their faces all the time. And when I come back to Australia, or if I'm traveling with my camera and I'm doing the same with the street photography like I do in Indonesia, because for me, I don't hide to take someone's photo. I would go and engage with the person, sit down and talk to them in 5, 10, 15 minutes. I don't even touch my camera, just talk to them. Wow. And when I'm about to leave, then I would ask them, I say, do you mind if I take a photo? And I will send you a copy and so forth. They say, oh yeah, no problem. And for that reason, they already trusted me, they feel comfortable with me and so forth. And they would give me a genuine expression. And if I try to do the same thing here in Australia or when I'm traveling, people just don't have time for me for that stuff. And everyone to me, I just don't have time and whatever. And everyone just look mean. And if I was to take a shot of the person, it's like, man, you just bother me enough. Just take it very quickly so I can go. And they would just give me an expression that when I get home, I'm looking at the photo, I say, but what's this? There's nothing there for me, and so on. And for that reason, I started looking at people from Indonesia and see if I can find a way to photograph those people with those kind of expression, which is so genuine, and be able to replicate that with my clients or people, in the West. And to the point that while I was in London, I met an actor who became a good friend. So he asked me one day to go to his place. He asked me to take some photos for him for his agent. So I said, yeah, I come to your place. So I packed my gear and I went over to his place, and then we took some shots, did some portrait, and he wanted some nice clean headshot. So when we took the headshot, I just looked and said, Billy, you look pathetic, man. You look miserable, that kind of stuff. And I picked up my phone. I said, is there any way that I could photograph you so you can look like these people in Indonesia? So we joked about it. And he said, you know what? I know a photographer who does the kind of job that you do, but he's in America. I said, who is he? And he said, Peter Hurley. I said, oh, I know Peter Hurley. He does a great job. And while I was in Indonesia, that's where I came across Peter Hurley. And I felt intimidated by the equipment that he was using. He was using Hasselblad camera, which is possibly $20,000, $30,000. And the Kino light, one light could be only $3,000 to $5,000 and so on. So his kit, just right in front of a client, is roughly $50,000. And I thought it was all about the gear, but it wasn't so much about the gear. Yeah. And I said, no, I like his work, but I just cannot produce that kind of work because I don't have that kind of equipment. And since he didn't know about photography, he said, well, if you want to shoot, those kind of images that you show me here, I know this is the guy that you should follow. So I started following Peter Hurley. And while in London, I started doing a lot of photography as well, and started getting some paid work and work assisting a photographer who's the brother-in-law of my landlord. And I learned a lot from him. And I sought out a photographer in Amsterdam in Holland, but not in Amsterdam. His name is Frank Dohoff, because I saw him on YouTube. I like the way he teaches lighting. And for me, most of my work, or when I want to learn something, I don't want to go on YouTube trying to just learn because someone is showing me what to do.
Sure.
You know, I want someone telling me how to do it and then why you're doing it and so on. And that guy came across to me as someone that I could reach out to. And I reached out to him and he said, Bruno, I do workshops every week, but they are in Dutch. So I said, well, I don't speak Dutch, but I know you speak English. So why don't I just come and then you and I can have one-on-one session. Just name your price. So you named the price. I said, that's not a problem. Jumped on the plane, went over to spend a couple of days with him. And because it was my one-on-one session, so I asked the questions that I wanted. I want the things that I wanted to know, and I got it from him. And so I did 3-4 more trips, you know, after that. And to the point that he just said, Bruno, you don't have to come to me anymore. Basically, I already taught you everything I could possibly teach anybody during that session. Just get out there, do your own thing. That's it. Because the principle of light that I've given you, it's not going to change. So now it's just a matter of you play with it and say it works for you and try to create your own image. Don't try to create my image. You know, go try to find a way to do your own stuff. I said, no, I know what I want to do, but I felt like I need to learn a little bit more. He said, no, you don't have to. So with that blessing from him, that he felt like I was able to do it, because after every session that I had with him, at the end of the 2 days, he would assign me 1 or 2 models of my choice. And he would leave the studio, or he would tell me, you can take them out and do anything you want to do with it. And then when I come back, he would say, man, that stuff is great. Or how did you do this? Or what made you do it? And so on. So he said, just go do your own thing, man. You don't need me anymore. Anyway, so it happened that my wife got headhunted by another, because my wife, she's a geophysicist.
Oh.
So she works in, yes, and she works in the oil and gas industry. I don't even know what she's doing, but everybody says that she's good. So, yeah. And so they headhunted her, and she came and told me about it. And I said, well, we moved all the way from Australia to Indonesia, and from Indonesia to the UK, because I was going to be closer to my family, and then you were going to be closer to your family as well. And we were going to try to make UK our home for the next 10 years. So if we have to go back to Perth, they're going to have to give you this, and that, you know. And so, okay, I'll go back and have a chat with them. And then she went back, and she came back, and she said, what? And guess what? They can give me this, and that, and that, and that, and that. So I shot myself in the foot. And so for that reason, I said, okay, so since I already shot myself in the foot, we just had to pack the containers and then make our way back to Australia. And so we made our way back to Australia, about going on 4 years now. And coming back to Australia, I told her, I said, okay, we're going to come back, and I'm going to stay away from accounting because I love my photography so much. And this is what I'm going to be doing, you know, moving forward. And she said, hey, do whatever you have to do. You need my help, I'm going to be here. And so I came back, I set up shop, and I've been trying to make it happen.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if I have this right, you went from a child in Africa to a basketball player, eventually in the NBA, to an accountant, to a photographer.
Yes.
Okay, those are some pretty dang dramatic changes.
They are. But the thing is just that I think my upbringing kind of set me up for this kind of life. Yeah, because my father was a transient kind of person because of his work.
Mm.
Yeah, and he could be appointed to work in this country here, in that country, and so forth. So he was always on the go.
Sure.
But
so if we were to talk to your dad or your mom, if that were possible, would they describe you as a stubborn child?
no.
How would they describe you?
Because I think they would describe me as a peacemaker.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I am the eldest in my family. And I'm glad that you got onto this family stuff as well. I'm the eldest in my family and eldest of 11 boys.
Oh, wow.
Yes, but I have two mothers.
Okay.
Yeah, my father married my mom first. And after I was born, for 7 years, they did not have any child. And during those 7 years, they tried IVF like in the 70s and 80s. So it wasn't as effective as what it is now. Yeah. So things didn't work. And because being African, my father could ask my mom permission to marry a second wife. And because my mom is the head of the family after my father, so she can give her a blessing for my father to marry a second wife. So they and that second wife and us can have the family, the African family that
Sure.
they intended to have, as a couple, but it's not happening. So they could make it happen that way. So for that reason, my father, married a second wife. That my mom played part in choosing as well.
Huh. Interesting.
And yes, and as nature would have it, when that second mom, which I call her my mom, I didn't call her stepmom or anything, my second mom became pregnant. My mom too fell pregnant.
Of course. Isn't that how it works?
Yeah. So what things that can go wrong can always go wrong. Murphy's law in reverse. So both moms ended up having twins.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. So I went from being the only child for my first 6-7 years to having 4 younger brothers to be born within weeks of each other.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm sitting there on the floor. I have 2 babies between my legs, while my moms, they giving a bath to the other 2 babies there. And when they finish with the 2, they bring the other 2, and so on. So basically, this is how my life was a little bit as a child. And for that reason, I was always looking after my younger brothers and the people around me. And my father was a drill sergeant because as an African man, he wanted his son to be better than he was and so forth. So my father was like, Bruno, God damn it, Bruno, Jesus Christ, and so forth. He was that kind of guy.
Sure.
To the point that I started thinking my middle name was Jesus Christ,
Okay, so now I'm hearing, somewhat of a structure, and at the beginning you told me that in Africa, African parents didn't really want you to play sports.
No.
So how did you end up in basketball then?
It happened to be that my mother's brother was a PE teacher. And he was actually a very excellent athlete. He was on the national basketball team, the national soccer team, the volleyball national soccer team, and the team handball. So he was one of those all-around players.
Wow.
And so he was a PE teacher, and he came to France for some, training courses. And he hadn't seen me for like 2 years, prior to that. So when he saw me, I was really, really tall. And so while in France, he stayed with us. And he saw me being so tall, and like most European kids or French, German, or whatever, soccer is our first sport. So I was playing soccer. I was a fullback. I was doing okay with that. And he said, you know what? I'm going to coach you how to play basketball because you're so tall. You're going to be good for basketball. So for the 3, I don't know, it could have been 6 months that he was in France. He just coached me every afternoon, basketball, 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 basketball. He took me to the American Cultural Center in Paris to watch games of basketball and so forth, watching Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and so forth. And he would get me out there doing hook shot left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. And he got this game and to the point that hook shot became one of my favorite shots playing basketball. And I don't know how many points that I scored, with the hook shot, but I think for my basketball career, I scored more with hook shots than actually taking the two-pointers. Yeah, and that was because of my uncle. So that's how I got involved with the basketball. And subsequently, when Chris Pond, this American teacher that came to my school, so when he saw that, he just fell in love with it. Yeah, because
Sure.
he could not see too many kids doing hook shot the way I was doing it. And he just fell in love with it, and he kept encouraging me. And yeah, that's the reason why I ended up in Houston, because of it.
Because that's interesting. So as you've gone through your life, you've made some significant changes. One of the first one was to leave basketball behind.
Yes.
After having so much invested in it and so many people around you probably telling you, man, this is, you're good, you should keep doing this. How did you emotionally work through the process of saying, I'm going to set aside this major piece of my life to pursue something else?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. And, I gave up on the game when I was turning 24 years old. And that was so young for a lot of people. But the injury didn't matter to me so much because I was able to carry on playing basketball if I wanted to. And coming to Australia, which became the catalyst of everything that I'm doing right now, made me change the path of basketball being everything to me, before that. And the reason why I kind of gave up basketball a lot easier was the benefit that I could get out of it, because I've given everything that I could give to basketball as such, but I felt like at that particular moment, I wasn't getting as much out of basketball anymore. Because yes, playing in high school, I won 2 state championships. And got to college, was able to go to the NCAA tournament in 1984. End up against all odds being at training camp with Milwaukee to be able to get selected 2 out of 35 people, to make a team. And being able to play for my national team, and then won a couple African games, and then qualify for the Olympic Games, and I got to play Olympic Games. The only thing that I could get out of basketball is to make a great living, like most of those people who have accomplished just as much as me, or possibly even less than I have. And it came to the point that if I wasn't going to be able to make a living out of basketball, then someone who can go to work and not being able to abuse their body and possibly mind at the same time, then basketball is not going to get me where I need to go. So I have to find my calling, find my new purpose, and follow that. So it was a lot easier for me to give up basketball because of that.
Sure. Now, how would you define your new purpose when you walked away from basketball? What was that new purpose?
My purpose hasn't changed very much. And it's some of the things it must be one thing that I haven't told to many people, but my wife. When I was playing basketball and being African, born and raised, early with the culture and so forth, I always felt like there's so much that we can do in Africa. And if not too many people are gonna do it, I had my little vision or my little purpose that I wanted to serve, which I'm still chasing as well. To be able to have my own development bank. And when I used to say that, my friends used to laugh. Since your own bank? I said, of course, my own bank. And they didn't say, I don't know where that idea came from. And I can just give you the concept that I had in mind.
Sure.
That, okay, I had a chance to play basketball professionally, so I was going to play for 10, 12 years, whatever, and retire. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do crazy stuff or whatever. So what I'm going to do with my money? Possibly nothing. Yeah, so that money is going to go in the bank, work on itself if I had the right people around me and so forth. If I was to finish basketball, pack my bag, go to Africa with whatever change that I have in my pocket. I have uncles and cousins who were farmers and so forth. And it was going to be a lot easier for me to go back to them and say, you know what, I'm going to help you guys to even get more land if you need to, or to be more productive with what you're doing. And I grew up in the West. I have contact with a lot of people. So I'm going to help you to get machinery to increase your productivity and so forth. And I'm going to try to find clients abroad to be able to sell your product for you. And the machinery that I'm going to give you loans for, you're going to be paying that loan back to me.
Sure.
And the product that you're selling, if locally you're selling it for $3,000 and I was able to get $5,000 abroad for that product for you, we're going to take the $2,000 extra, we're going to put it into an account. And I'm going to get all the farmers, I'll be supporting them to help them build their business. They're paying me back my money because I already got my house, I already got my car, I don't need anything else. You know, my kids, they can still survive. That's not a problem. So what I'm going to do with the rest of the money that I have, if I can help some other people. So that was the idea. So with me helping those people, helping themselves, and then be able to help them even create a deposit of fund where over time it's going to grow, that's going to become the bank. And I'm going to be the CEO of that bank. And I didn't have to go borrow money to be able to do that. It's just working with the, those people that I was going to help. So that was my idea, and it's still my idea.
I love it.
And I'm going to make it happen. And if I'm not, I'm going to make sure that I got two boys that they will try to make it happen for me.
Oh, very cool. So now going from that's an awesome dream, but now you've shifted from doing accounting, being a CPA, actually fiddling with money to fiddling with the camera.
Yes.
What was it that drove you to make the change from spreadsheets to images?
Oh, I think it's just the love of being around people. And the same people that I'm trying to help in Africa, I could see them in the people that I was interacting with in Indonesia.
Ah, sure.
It was those little vendors, on the side streets. Those guys on the big rice paddock, they're out there with the straw hats and, with the machete, harvesting rice and with the, buffaloes and so forth. It's those people. And I felt like I was using the camera to capture those images of them. Is there any way that I could actually be able to capture image of people in the West who are possibly financially sound to pay the quality of work that I'm going to be delivering, to be able to follow up with some of my dreams that I had and so on. So that was my purpose of wanting to take the photography to the next level and to make things happen for the things that I want to do.
Sure. So how comfortable were you when you said, okay, I'm stepping away from playing with numbers to I'm going to try to make a go of it as a photographer professionally?
Yeah, the thing is that the thought process of should I not, or it's going to be tough, how I'm going to pay the bills and those kind of things, they're all drivers for negative or for setting you for failure, for sure.
Uh-huh.
And I have this inbuilt capability that I believe in myself. And I feel like things are hard, but they're not impossible. That's it. And for that reason, it was maybe not easy, but it made it a lot what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm thinking in French now. Going that direction was a lot easier by me taking analogy as a basketball game. The game might be tough. Let's say if I was to be playing Oklahoma State and say, wow, those guys we're going to be playing over at their place, they're going to be tough and so forth.
That would have been about the time you'd have been playing Bill Self.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So if I'm already making the game tougher than it is, it's just gonna be doubly tougher than me to actually get out there and play. As opposed to say, you know what, I'm gonna get out there and I give those guys hell today and keep my word and so on. So with that mentality, say, you know what, I'm gonna give that stuff a go. And this year, I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna be doing this. And having that conviction, I was able to say, you know what, babe, I'm gonna let the accounting go. I'm gonna be pursuing photography, and this is where I'm gonna be in the next 5 years, and so on. And so far, things are going, it's on track. And I wish that it could happen a lot quicker, but look at this. I left Australia 11 years ago as an accountant, and I came back as a photographer. Nobody knew me as a photographer in Perth. Even nobody knew me as an accountant in Perth. So I had my work cut out for me, and I just have to get out there and deal with it. And this is what I'm doing.
Well, you answered one of my questions I've written down here as we've been writing, which is how have you applied your experience in sport to photography? Well, you just explained how you did it. It's really about the mental toughness. It's the it's really kind of saying, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to keep a positive attitude about it, and I'm going to give it everything I've got. So, when you were speaking, I actually had this might sound like a strange question, but I had a question with your background and then all of your experiences. What are you afraid of in life?
As a child, as a youngster, young 20s, 30s, and so forth, I was never afraid of anything. But now that I have my own family and I have kids, even if I'm going to jump on the plane now, the night before, I might feel a little bit of weariness. Not so much worry, but I know I'm going to get there okay and so forth. But yet there's this little thing in my, oh gosh, I hope I make it okay because I want the kids to be, and so forth. These are the kind of things that possibly worry me or that kind of, make me afraid, scared me. Mm-hmm. But when you talk about having to face anything, change, for me, change is not something that you're going to have to go through for a long time to be able to assimilate, to be able to belong. For me, change is just a shift of thinking. Just shift your thinking and so forth, and change happens today. If today I want to say I'm going to lose 10 pounds, I just have to shift my mind about losing 10 pounds and go and do it. That's it. And so for that reason, that's one of the reasons why I'll be able to navigate life the way I've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Which is, it's a great story. I love it. So where in life, or have you in life, run into something that you haven't been able to, I don't want to say achieve your goals, but get where you wanted to go? How did you deal with it?
I think if we think that in life we have a certain height that we're trying to get to, we're not gonna do as much as we can, because once we get to that height, there's always something else that we're gonna try to aspire to get to. So when it comes, like I just want to talk about basketball, because I could not actually make a living like most of my friends. Akeem Olajuwon, we went to Houston together. Now he's going to be an Hall of Famer in the NBA, or if he's not already, and so forth. He had a great life and so on. But after he stopped playing basketball, there are a lot of other stuff that he's doing. Some of the new goal and so forth. And for me, even though the ultimate goal was to be able to help my family and other relatives and possibly my country, and if not, the African continent in a way, with the idea of having that Farmers Development Bank or community bank. Yeah, it's a far-fetched idea in some ways for a lot of people, but I know it's achievable and so forth. And there is no need for me to freak out that I didn't do it last year. I'm not doing it this year, or I don't think I'm going to do it next year. No, that goal is still there. I'm, pursuing it. And there are a lot of other things that I'm achieving through life that I'm going through right now, but they're all on a personal basis. But
Sure.
I don't want it to be personal. I want it to be humane. I want it to be a community, achievement in a way. And but I'm chipping away slowly to get there, and I'm not afraid of not getting there. If the good man is out there looking after me like he has been doing, something is going to happen eventually.
Oh, I love that answer. I love that answer. So with the various things you've done in life, the various changes you've made, the shifts you've made, if you could go back to that young man in college and give him some advice for how to go through life, what would you advise him?
That young man, just to always listen to the elders, because they're full of wisdom and so on. And in some ways, to be a little bit patient as well.
Okay.
And because I think coming to Australia was a big curiosity. And I wanted to do it because I felt like, well, I've lived in Europe, I lived in America, I've been in South America, I've been in Asia, I've been everywhere. I haven't been in Australia. I want to go to Australia now. No, but if I'd stayed in Houston, looked after myself, go back to Milwaukee, do the thing that I want to do during during the off season, pack my bag, fly to Australia, do the things that I want to do, go back. Yeah, but I wasn't patient for that. So I jumped on the plane and came in maybe 3-4 years too early.
Sure. Sure.
So for that reason, I would tell a young Bruno, you could have been just a little bit more patient and so on, and not jump the gun, and to listen to, the good people around you, because everybody around me, I just learned so much from those people, and I give everything that I've achieved to my foster family, you might call it, my legal guardian, Mr. Robert Gallagher. And the gentleman's done everything for me, and he was more of a father to me than my real father was in a lot of ways. Yeah, so he never gave me a bad advice. Everything that he told me, if I'd followed, his word letter by letter, I'd be doing some great stuff right now, and so on. And that would be the advice that I would give myself if I was to go back to being 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 21, 22 before I came to Australia.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So having that perspective on that young man, how do you raise your sons? What do you tell them?
The problem that I'm having right now, even with my son, because my early years were spent with my father. And my father is a disciplinarian. He's a drill sergeant. And I got to America where fathers get to play games with their sons. When I was growing up, you don't kick soccer ball with your father.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, you don't do anything for fun with your father. You play over there, and then you have only playtime as well, and so on. And here I am this morning, this evening, we finished dinner with my wife, and we were around the table playing games with my son. And I asked my son, I got some donuts for him earlier. And I said, "Do you still have some of that donuts?" And then he said, "Oh, Daddy, you snooze, you lose." I wouldn't eat my father's donuts. That wouldn't happen. And then this is the relationship that I have with my kid. It's completely opposite of what I was raised, like, and the interaction that I have with my father. And so right now with my son, I just talk to him when I'm taking him to school. We have these little moral lessons that I try to give him, every day. And to always treat people like you would like to be treated, and then respect everybody. And people that you see that will look as disposable along the streets in our cities or whatever, they're not disposable. They just suffered bad luck in life and so forth. And don't make fun of anybody who doesn't look the same as you, because at the end of the day, he's same. So those little things that I'm just trying to teach my son and so on, just to be a well-rounded human being, full of empathy and sympathy for others, and always put yourself in other people's spot for a second when you see them.
Beautiful.
Yes.
So how old is your son now?
My son just turned 8, and I have a 4-month-old as well.
Oh, very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a wonderful journey. So you grew up in a much tougher environment than your sons are growing up in, with
Yes.
the girl father sergeant. You moved to France, and did both your moms move to France with you then? Okay, so then you were surrounded probably by some level of, I don't want to say criticism, but people looked at you differently.
Yes.
When you were younger. How was it you were able to shift out of, oftentimes we repeat what our parents did, whether or not we want to. We hear our father's words come out of our own mouth. How have you been able to shift away from that more stiff, structured lifestyle to what you're telling me a very different story with your boys, which I love. How was it that you were able to make that shift?
Because that shift is coming with the environment as well. And so like when we use that expression, monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
And I wish that really, really holds true, but it doesn't. And because we have some families who have, parents who are great, and they're trying to raise their children the best way they can to be even better than them. And the children turned out to be something completely different than what they were raised to be, and so on. And having to live in an African culture in Europe and being able to assimilate and fit within the European culture, but still know that I got my African culture as well.
Mm-hmm.
And having to have a grasp at those two, then having to add another culture to it, which was in America and so forth. So when like they say, you can take the African out of the bush, but you cannot take the bush out of the African.
Mm-hmm.
That could still hold, but yet the African now is much more sophisticated because of the additional culture that is being able to bring to the table. And at the end of the day, you just have to adapt to the environment that you're in and try to see what's into that environment that you can actually bring into your own environment and see how you can actually merge yourself with that environment and then be able to fit and prosper, with the new environment that you created for yourself.
Nice.
So, yeah, basically that's it. And if I was to take my father, who was a disciplinarian, and Mr. Gallagher, who was, a much more freer or carefree as such, that you can have fun. Just be careful. Okay? Take the car and go, but be careful. Or here's money, go to the movie, be careful. As opposed to my father, don't do that. You're not gonna take that car. I'm gonna have someone to take you there and then come back because you might do something wrong, and so on. So it's completely demotivating for someone to be able to grow very quickly because it retards, your progress by being restrictive or restricted. Yeah.
Sure. Well, cool. Your sons are very lucky. Well, I've got a couple more questions.
Sure.
So, if you have the opportunity to come to somebody who was trying to decide, gosh, do I go play pro ball or do I go become a photographer? They're at a crossroads in life trying to make a decision to change. What's the one thing you would tell them?
If it's something that they really want to do, then I say, it's like a parachute. Get on top of that base cliff or whatever that is, jump and open up that parachute and then let the wind take you exactly where you need to go, but just keep your eyes on where you're gonna land. That's it. Mm-hmm. And because life is just an adventure, basically. I know that we all want to have a big bank account and have the big house and big boats and whatever. We can get all of those things, provided that we just jump off the base and do the things that we need to do, navigate the maze that we have to go through, take the detour that we have to take along the way to eventually get to our destination and so forth. And for me, that's the easy way to do it. And what's the sense in life if you don't have an adventure? Because that's a whole journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is the most important thing in life?
At this present time, my family. Yeah. At this present time, my family is more important to me than anything else. And, but if I could actually extend my family to you and to, all the other people that I'm coming across and being able to help each other and get to where we need to be, that would be my biggest wish and my biggest hope. That would have that global family and be able to prosper together.
That is beautiful. Well, I really appreciate all your time tonight for you, today for me. Thank you so much for staying up late. If people want to either get a hold of you or learn more about you, what are the best ways for them to do that?
The best way is here on LinkedIn, because, I'm here on LinkedIn just about every day, and I'm posting, 2 to 3 times a week. And my website, where I do most of my work, which is www.lightpaint.com. Okay. And I'm on Instagram as well as @lightpaintimages. And I'm on Facebook as myself for my personal site, and my business site is, my business page is Light Paint Images and Photography.
Okay, I'll make sure that those links are on this on my website where I post this discussion that we've just had. So
yeah, it's great.
I always end with the same question.
Yes.
And that question is, what question should I have asked you?
What question should you have asked me? Oh, I thought about it before, but now I forgot. I said, I hope he's going to ask me this question. I hope he's going to ask me. What was it again? What do I do for fun? You didn't ask me that.
Oh, what do you do for fun?
You see, now you asked me this question now. I'm an avid fly fisherman.
Very cool. Very cool. So do you tie your own flies?
I tie my own flies. And But it just happened to be that I'm in a part of the world where I can just practice my casting. And, I could go to the river and, cast for some sea run fish, but I don't do much salmon fishing or trout fishing as much as I used to. And it's been one of my biggest hobby besides photography at the time. So I used to travel around the place, New Zealand, Canada, just to go fishing and stuff. Yeah, so you didn't ask me that question. What do I do for fun? So that's what I like to do for fun.
Perfect way to wrap this up. Bruno, thank you so much for spending all this time with me today. I have absolutely enjoyed our conversation.
I mean, it's been great, and I wonder how come it's been so long till we just getting together now. I wish we had gotten together sometime earlier.
Me too. Me too.
And I hope this is not our last interaction.
It will not be. I am sure we will be in touch as life moves us both forward.
I look forward to that, mate. I look forward to that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.